Wolfman made my list of most anticipated for 2025. So was I disappointed or was I satisfied? Well, that's what I'm going to talk about. I have this feeling I'm going to have a lot of interruptions during the recording of this review. I have all three fur babies in the room with me. One of them keeps wanting to get up in the chair, get back down, get up in the chair, get back down. I've got a recovering fur baby here, little Chib. She's on the mend. And then I've got another fur baby back here who's afraid of the bug zapper. So bear with me, please. Maybe it'll go off without a hitch. Okay, Wolfman. I was going to go see this. Oh, here we go. There goes Chibi. She says, all right, I'm out of here. Okay, go ahead. Wolfman. I was going to go. Okay. Given what was going on with Chibi these past couple days, I'm happy to be interrupted by her. It's just interesting she chooses now to do it. Okay, Wolfman. I was going to go see an advanced screener of this the other day, but because of what was going on with Chibi, I decided I just didn't feel comfortable doing that. So I was able to go see it today, first showtime, 4:10, I think. I don't necessarily want to say that my thoughts are mixed because I don't really have mixed thoughts about it. I enjoyed this movie. I did not feel super disappointed. I did not feel angry. I didn't find a whole bunch of weaknesses in the writing. There were a few moments, like there almost always are, but as a whole, I did enjoy this film. It wasn't anything that was necessarily new or groundbreaking with the approach to this story of Wolfman, the guy who transforms into a wolf or starts to take on wolf-like qualities. But something that I did appreciate about this was that it felt like it had a bit of heart to it. You spend a good deal of time coming to know the characters in this film before there is anything significant that happens. If you've seen the trailer, you've seen that there's a truck, they're driving a truck, goes off the road. That's when basically the main confrontation with the beast happens. There is a sort of a prologue-y thing in the beginning where you're introduced to the main character of Blake as a child with his father. They kind of live off the grid out in the wilderness of like Oregon. There are known instances of a creature in the woods. They even have a little text intro at the beginning that talks about basically the legend of the Wolfman or face of the wolf or something. So we get introduced to Blake and his father, and then an event happens. And after that, we jump forward in time about 30 years to, I guess, present day, because the opening text was talking about an event that happened in 1995. So I think this takes place, the intro takes place around 95, I believe. Then we jump forward 30 years. Here we are, 2025. And we meet Blake as an adult. He's basically a stay-at-home dad because he's in between jobs. His wife, played by Julia Garner, is a successful but stressed and very busy journalist. And kind of, the stress of life and all of that stuff has kind of gotten to them. I wouldn't say that their marriage is necessarily on the rocks, but it's a little bit frayed. Not because of anything huge, but just sort of real life. Sometimes this happens with people. And so the driving force behind the family going up to Oregon to where his father's place is that his father's been missing for a good long while, and finally he's declared deceased. So Blake has now received access to the cabin in Oregon. So it does take its time building up to this point. I believe it's, probably at least 25-30 minutes before the incident with the Wolfman happens, involving when he gets harmed and obviously contracts this illness, and then he starts the transformation. The remaining hour is just him dealing with the changes in his body, and they are being stalked by this creature that attacked them. So it's not a movie that speeds through the events. I liked that it gave things time to breathe a bit. His transformation isn't instantaneous. It's something that happens over the course of several hours. This movie, the bulk of this movie takes place over one night as they are fighting off this creature that is stalking them and trying to kill them. So we see things start to shift with the father, and he starts to lose himself more and more to this illness. Something that I really liked about this was that in a lot of ways, as I was watching this, I was feeling like, wow, this is kind of like a metaphor for, or symbolism for, someone who has a terminal disease and you are losing them. You see them slipping away right in front of your eyes. So I was looking up stuff about this movie, and Leigh Whannell, the director, he basically mentioned that's pretty much what it's about. I don't think that's really any like groundbreaking revelation or anything like that, but he referenced David Cronenberg's movie The Fly as kind of like this inspiration for him as he wrote this story. He basically wanted to tell a story of a typical villain type, because Wolfman is considered one of the, villains, but he wanted to make it a story really about no villain or no bad guy, an allegory for disease, a tragic story. And if you've seen The Fly, the David Cronenberg version, that's pretty much what was going on with Jeff Goldblum's character in that film. So I really liked that they gave it that grounded feeling in humanity and the suffering of a family seeing someone wither away in front of them. And it was quite touching. There were scenes that were moving to me, and I like that. I like when horror has elements that ground you in reality, such as being able to develop this emotional connection you feel with the characters, this identification you can have with them, and sympathy and empathy for their situation. I really appreciated that about this film. I liked the father-daughter relationship that was depicted in here. I like that it is very positive sort of messaging about the importance of, basically parenthood, and the importance of that parent-child relationship, specifically father-child relationship, because of the relationship we see that he had with his father when he was young, contrasted with the very close relationship he has with his daughter. His father was a totally different kind of person. So those were things that I appreciated about it. As far as the fundamentals of the storytelling, other things that I liked about it was when it would show him, or when it would show things from his perspective as he's transitioning, evolving into this Wolfman creature, he starts to lose his ability to communicate like he had before. And he also starts to have changes to his senses, like his hearing and his vision. And it was really cool how they showed, not necessarily the hearing part of it, that was kind of interesting, but when it would show what things looked like to him, how his family looked to him through his wolf eyes. I really liked that special effect of it. I thought it was quite interesting. And as he was continuing to evolve, when it would show things from his perspective, right at the end, the way he viewed his family had changed drastically. They didn't look like how they did earlier when he was starting to have these changes going on. I found that interesting. I really liked that. I also liked the choice of the actor, the adult actor who played Blake and the child actor who played Blake. I felt like they were very convincing as far as believability that they could have been the same person. I appreciated that. That was one of the first things I wrote down. Something also that was kind of interesting to me was it was so weird to hear Julia Garner talk, unlike the way she talks in Ozark, because that's really my only exposure to Julia Garner. I know I've seen her in some other stuff before, but that's like the one that has seared itself in my brain. So to hear her talk, I don't want to say normal, because that sounds a little bit snobby, but neutral. Let's say she's got this neutral dialect. So that was kind of cool. I thought she did a really good job in here acting. I thought everybody did a good job in here acting, especially the character of Blake, played by Christopher Abbott. There were some quotes that really struck a chord with me, and I wrote them down and I wanted to repeat them. There's a scene where a father tells their child, "It's not hard to die. It's the easiest thing in the world. We're all inches away from it." And it was during a moment when the father was scared for his child, and he was kind of like getting on their case, because you know how kids can like just run into danger or not realize the danger that they might be putting themselves in. And the thought of that, how fragile life is really, that you are just moments away from it. At any time something could happen that you could never think of or anticipate, and then it's just gone. It's done. And that's a sobering thought. And I appreciated the reminder of that. Another quote was when a father said to his child, sometimes when you're a daddy, you're so scared of your kids getting scars, emotional scars. You want to protect them from that, but you're so scared of them getting scars that you become the thing that scars them. And that kind of made me think of, generational issues that sometimes happen within families, like abuse that is just handed down from parent to child and then on down the line. I think a lot of that stems from, half the time people not knowing really how to parent because, they don't come with a guidebook, as we've heard. And sometimes you try to do what you think is right because you want to protect your kid. But sometimes those things you're doing is exactly what ends up hurting your kid. And you don't realize it, but that's the reality of the situation sometimes for some parents and their children. So I like that. I thought that was pretty, not necessarily super profound because it's something that we're all aware of, but I just appreciated how that thought or that sentiment was put into words. And I also like that sort of writing helped give these characters depth. I like the practical effects in here as well. It got really gnarly in a few scenes, super gnarly. It's not constant, so you're not exposed to it all the time. So you don't necessarily get desensitized to it, but some scenes, really nasty. But as a whole, I enjoyed this film. Once again, another movie that hasn't pissed me off yet totally in 2025. So I'm liking how this year is getting started. I can't say that I was amazingly wowed by this movie, but at least I can say that it didn't piss me off. And there weren't too many things that I had issues with, like I said, as far as the writing, but there were some things like, amazingly, a battery could charge a vehicle when who knows how long that battery charger had been there unattended and unused. Amazingly, this flashlight worked. How? How in the world did the batteries last that long? Stuff like that. But I just kind of went with it because I was so involved in and invested in the story and the characters. And it's not necessarily something that subverts your expectation as far as events that happen. Little predictable, certainly in some ways, not, like I said, not anything hugely new or groundbreaking or totally innovative, but it didn't bother me. I was fine with that. I just liked the way this story was packaged, and that made me happy. So that's all I have to say about Wolfman, and I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Little Chibi is doing circles at my feet. She wants to get back in my lap. So I'll see you guys later. Adios.